Season 2.5 is halfway through, which means the meta is pretty set in stone. So if you're trying to climb the ranks and avoid throwing your games, knowing which heroes actually perform and which ones are holding you back is everything. So today we're breaking down the 4 best and worst heroes for each role in Marvel Rivals. And fair warning, some of your mains might have gotten the short end of the stick. Let's start with the front line, the Vanguards. These are your tanks, your space makers, your anchors. And right now there are 4 that stand way above the rest. The first one is Groot. Groot got some recent nerfs to his Ironwood wall, reducing the HP, and now he does, instead of 70 damage per hit, 65, which is fine because he's still really strong. He has great zone control, he can cut off chokes, he can cut off heals from the enemy team, and he has some insane combo potential with other heroes and their ultimates like Namor, Scarlet Witch, and anybody with like a large AoE damage ult. A lot of people struggle against Groot because they're just not able to shoot his walls effectively, and therefore they can't really take any space. He puts a lot of pressure on the enemy team, especially their front line. But he's not invincible because if you just shoot his walls, he becomes kind of useless. Another strong tank this season is Magneto. Magneto has had a mix of buffs and nerfs in the last season or two. Recently, he had his ult charge costs increase, so he gets it less often. But they also recently buffed his mag cannon, which is his right click that does the push, and that's extremely strong because it allows him to dish out more damage. Magneto is one of those characters that just all around is great to play. He's great for team play with his bubble. He has a really good counter ultimate that just negates the enemy team's ultimates. People really struggle against him for that reason. They hate how he can just completely negate their ult. Even if it's not with his own ultimate, he can bubble and usually shield people from taking any instance of damage, which just renders the enemy ultimate completely useless. He's by far one of the strongest tanks, but if you're struggling against Magneto, just know that he's weak to high damage output, and if you force his bubble consistently, he has to be a lot pickier on who he uses it on. Now the next one is Emma Frost. Emma got some pretty interesting changes at the beginning of season 2.5. She does less damage now in her diamond form, but she got an increase to her beam range from 15 to 18 meters. Emma's really strong because she has insane damage output, all while having CC at her disposal for counterplay potential. People really struggle against her because she can grab and stun lock mobility heroes and render them useless. She can counter ultimates with diamond form and just grabbing them, bringing them to the ground. Whether it's Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, or anyone that's not CC immune in their ultimate, she can render them completely useless. On top of that, she has a 400 HP shield that can block a lot of damage and block projectile ultimate. If you're struggling against an Emma player, I promise you're not alone, but don't worry because she's not invincible. Just like Magneto, she's weak against high damage, and also tank busters like Wolverine and Iron Fist. And for number 4 best tank, we have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is a weird one because even though he's constantly been getting nerfs since season 0 until the recent season where they gave him a buff to his primary, they reduced his ult charge costs, and now he has no fall off on Maelstrom of Madness. Even while he was getting nerfed, he has just always been a staple in the game. He has the best shield in the game that makes him basically a 450 HP hero. His portals are essential for counterplay and saving games, getting back to point fast if you're low on time. And all around, he just has a great playmaking ultimate. Now, the only reason anyone would struggle against Strange is just because they're generally unaware. His best value obviously comes from his ultimate, but if you're paying attention to him, it's going to be hard for him to get it off. Overall, he's not super hard to play against. He's just one of those really well-balanced characters. But if you are struggling against them, things like melee heroes and just like Mag and Emma, high damage, you can take care of them just fine. That's it for the 4 best tanks. But what about the 4 worst? The ones who seem not to get picked as much or get as much value. Well, I think one we can all agree on, especially in this poke meta, is Thor. Thor had some recent changes to his Thor Force, which are kind of weird. I've heard mixed things from Thor players saying that, you know, it's good, it's bad. One of the reasons why I think he's weak is because he's just not as tanky as he was before. Getting less bonus health for using his abilities just makes it a lot easier to punish him when he overstays his welcome. And he also doesn't have the best ultimate. It's fairly easy to avoid depending on, you know, the heroes that he's using on. Obviously, a good Thor will make good use of it, but he also can't mitigate damage for himself or the team. So he's kind of a bullet sponge if you target him. He's also pretty easy to CC, so Emma, you know, is going to be able to take care of him pretty easily. Just like the other tanks, high damage, things like Punisher, Hela, Hawkeye, He doesn't have a shield to block anything, so you can just pelt him in the face and his health bar is just going to plummet. It's not like he doesn't have a place in the game. A good Thor can definitely have impact, but this season his has just lowered quite a bit. Someone who also feels a lot worse recently is The Thing. The Thing hasn't had any real recent changes. You know, he hasn't been touched in a while, but he's weak for the same reasons as Thor. Low damage mitigation and not a whole lot of mobility, not a whole lot of survivability. Even with the Invisible Woman team up, if you target The Thing and you're just consistently pumping damage into him, you know, you can take care of him pretty easily. What also makes him a little more niche or weaker than Thor is that he's purely melee close range. At least with Thor, with like the Thor Force, you can like throw those lightnings at people. But with The Thing, you can. You are purely a frontline bullet sponge with only your embattled leap to slightly reduce damage taken. And then you have your dash where you get like some slight bonus health while you're trying to get away. The Thing is only really good at stopping dive comps. That's like the only time that you'll actually get value running him. And it's funny because even if you're doing that, you almost have to exclusively sit backline, because with poke meta right now and then playing into Groot or Emma, you are just going to get destroyed. So yeah, overall, he's just really easy to punish. Now, the third worst Vanguard I want to bring up is Penny Parker. Penny got some pretty interesting recent buffs. You got to team up with Rocket, gives her an extra nest, and then prior to that, I think they increased her movement speed while shooting, and they made it so she can get crits, so headshots. But even with all that, Penny's weak because she has, just like Thor and The Thing, low damage mitigation. I would say that hers is better than Thor's and The Thing's because she can sit in her webs and self-heal, but she has nothing to offer the team. So she's a little bit better than those two in that sense because she can self-sustain a little bit better, but she offers nothing for the team, no damage mitigation for them. So she's only good on certain maps that have like really tight choke points. For example, the symbiote map or the castle map with those first tight choke points where it's like extremely hard to make your way through. Penny sets up there, it's almost impossible to take. But on any other map, especially domination, it's like she just feels worthless. She also has an extremely underwhelming ultimate that oftentimes is really only good in the lower ranks. If you're struggling against a Penny player, I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that if you just destroy her nest, she's completely useless. And lastly, for the worst Vanguards, we have Venom. Venom hasn't been changed a whole lot. The most recent change was his team up being removed from Spider-Man, and he got to team up with Jeff now. But it doesn't really change much of how he works. Venom's a solid tank when you have a lot of team-oriented play. So he's really good, I would say, in like pro play. But in ranked, he's weaker. And the reason for that is because if the enemy team counter swaps to anti-dive heroes, if Venom is the sole dive character by himself, all he kind of is a fly on the wall. He can't really do a lot by himself other than be a nuisance. If he's comboing with other divers, he's gonna get a lot more value, but with so much CC and immobilization in the game, heroes like Emma and The Thing and other high damage heroes, it's gonna make it really easy to take care of them. So that's it for the Vanguards. But when it comes to duelists, it's pretty clear on who's the best because every season it seems like they're the ones that get banned the most. So when it comes to carry potential, these four duelists are dominating right now. The first is undoubtedly Hawkeye. Now it's gonna depend whether you're on console or PC. I've heard that Hawkeye on console isn't that great because it requires good aim and it's hard to aim on console. Regardless, a good Hawkeye will absolutely dominate your lobby. For some reason, every season he seems to get buffed when he doesn't need it. This season he got a team up and an increase in base damage. Who the f knows why? He can instantly kill squishies with a headshot, even through support ults. That includes the supports like Luna, Cloak, Invis, and Mantis. And it's just almost impossible to challenge a good Hawkeye who hits his shots. Now, his weaknesses are definitely shields and supposed to be dive and fast moving targets. But that's why Hawkeyes are so scary, because if they have great aim, you could be a fast moving target. You could be Black Panther. You could be Spider-Man. But a Hawkeye who hits his shots will still have no trouble dealing with you. For the next duelist, we have Hela. Hela is just like Hawkeye in the fact that for some reason, she is always getting buffed. For this season, she got an increase to her mag capacity. Who the hell knows why? She can 2-tap squishies from any range, and she's hit scan, unlike Hawkeye, so it makes it really easy to hit her shots. She has insane damage output, and with the recent buff, she can finish kills off even easier. The change just in itself bails a lot of bad players out because even if they whiff, they're not necessarily being rewarded for good aim because now they have an extra 2 bullets to bail them out. But she does have low mobility, so her weaknesses are going to be similar to Hawkeye's. Iron Man has been another hero who's been rising in popularity recently. He hasn't really been changed too much recently, so I don't know why. Just all of a sudden, though, all the Iron Man players came out of the woodworks. and he has been a nightmare to deal with. He got that team up with Ultron. Doesn't necessarily make him too strong or even Ultron that strong, but he's got that ultimate that can just insta-kill anyone, even through support ultimates. He can also farm his ult extremely fast. So an Iron Man can get an ultimate in like a super long team fight at least twice. And having an ult like that being shot off twice is extremely dangerous and unfun to play against. Not to mention his beam is so freaking strong and the range on it is crazy. Like you'll think that you're far enough away and he's still reaching you and doing so much damage, especially if they have good tracking. It's just so annoying playing against a good Iron Man, and I feel like most people would rather just ban him out than even mess with it. And for the last duelist, we have our queen, Storm. Storm's kind of always been really good. Like she was underrated in season 0, then she got a buff and she was broken in season 1, then she got a nerf, and then now she got buffed again. She got that team up with Jeff that is just ridiculously broken. So yes, they just like nerfed the fact that she gets her ult less often, but they didn't nerf the damage it does. So even with that change, the combo between Jeff and Storm is just ridiculous, and it can kill anyone through support ults. Not to mention by herself, she does great damage with the Pierce. She can offer great team support with damage amp and mobility. And it's kind of an unpopular opinion, but she's kind of a good anti-dive too, unless you're playing against Spider-Man. Excluding those 4, there are a lot of strong duelists in the game, but those are definitely the best right now without question. Maybe you could give an honorable mention to Punisher. I've been seeing him get banned a lot too, and he's been getting played a lot in pro play. But what about the ones at the bottom? I think we can all agree that one is Black Panther. He has not been touched since season 1 when he desperately needs it. A good BP can actually be really strong, but there's just too many anti-dive or CC heroes in the game. Not to mention, he has a bug with his dash resets that still hasn't been fixed. There are times where he will get a hit after marking somebody and it doesn't register, so he doesn't get a refresh on his cooldown. And it's been frustrating people for a long time. But yeah, he just feels so easily countered with just coordinated team play, or if just someone swaps to the thing. He gets completely immobilized and rendered useless. Okay, so at the time of recording this, BP was actually pretty awful. But apparently after a recent patch, he got fixed. It wasn't in the patch notes, at least from what I saw, but I guess they fixed his hit reg issues and made some slight tweaks to his ult or something, which makes sense because I have been seeing so many BPs in my games recently, and he has been terrorizing lobbies, and that changes things a bit. I actually think he might replace Iron Man for a top 4 spot, but if that happens, then who replaces Black Panther? Well, I would think that Widow would be a safe option. She's just overall not that strong. Like, you have to have really good aim and just have a perfect playstyle to make her work. And even though she kind of has some survivability against dive with her own kit, just in general, it's really easy to overwhelm a Black Widow if you just target her and she can't sit behind the line and just get free shots off. You know, she's not charging her ult, she's not getting headshots, and overall just not really getting a lot of value. So she definitely sits on the weaker side. Another hero who's been rendered useless as time goes on is Moon Knight. So he has some increased survivability, which is nice, and he does gain his ult charge extremely fast. I'll give him that. But with so many shields in the game now, he's really forced to play off angles, which for him is kind of rough because he has extremely low mobility. So with low mobility, it makes it really easy to target him if your team is running dive because he does a terrible job at getting away. His cooldowns are long. It's really easy to avoid his ultimate if he's not using it in combination with other heroes like Groot. And if the enemy team is playing really separated, he can't really get a lot of value because he can't get the bounces between his shots to farm damage. He's also really weak into flyers because oftentimes they're playing too high up to get value with the bounces. And so he has to choose like, oh, do I target this flyer or do I target the people below? Moon Knight can be really good and he has great assassination potential, but usually there's a hero that can do his assassination job better. There's another weak hero that you guys might disagree with, and that is Spider-Man. The low elos are going to hate this take because I know that Spider-Man is terrorizing their lobbies, but guys, I promise you, he's not that good. 1, he's extremely hard to play. 2, he's extremely squishy. Even as fast as he is, with the slightest bit of coordinated team play, his health drops fast as hell. He also recently got a nerf by losing the Venom team up, which lost him one of his one-shot combos, and he lost invulnerability for escape. A good Spidey will still make him work, but again, with so much anti-dive and CC in the game, just like BP, it makes it extremely hard to play him. And for the last worst duelist, we have Iron Fist. Some people are going to be mad that I didn't say Widow, but honestly, I think Black Widow is kind of underrated, especially in this flyer meta, you know, into flyers and stuff like that. She can kind of hit. But Iron Fist, though, even though he can chase down flyers, he got nerfed pretty hard. He's a shell of what he used to be since his survivability is so much lower because they reduce the amount of bonus HP that he can get from his block. His movement also got nerfed by increasing the cooldown on his kick. So now he's just a lot easier to punish. He's a lot more susceptible to anti-dive or the CC in the game. And he's a lot more susceptible to high damage with not having as much bonus health. So just about anything that can take care of Spider-Man at BP can also take care of Iron Fist. I'm kind of beating a dead horse by saying this, but guys, literally, if someone plays a character really well and they know the ins and outs, they're gonna be able to make him work in most scenarios. But that doesn't mean that on paper that they are good. If someone puts in the time and makes them good, that is way different than them actually being good just on paper at face value. With how many duelists there are in the game, it can be kind of hard to rank them sometimes, but it's a different story with the strategists, considering there are only 9 of them. If I'm covering the 4 best and the 4 worst, you know, that's 8, so that leaves 1 unattended. Kind of silly, I know, but we're gonna start with the best 4, and Loki absolutely deserves probably the #1 spot on that list. His most recent change was the nerf to his runes, which I believe increased the cooldown from 25 to 30 seconds. But even with that change, he is extremely strong. He gains his ultimate so fast, it's ridiculous. He's strong against dive. He has great counterplay with his runes. He can negate ultimates, negate damage for a team, completely save somebody in the front line or himself. On top of the fact that his own survivability, being able to swap places, go invisible, he just has an extremely intricate kit, and when you master it, he is almost untouchable. He has his fair share of weaknesses. You know, Moon Knight, if you place clones together, but you can negate that by just placing them further apart. Captain America, kind of, because he can just throw a shield to the ground and reveal you if you're trying to get away while you're invis. His cooldown on his clone switch is pretty long, so he has low mobility, and he's fully reliant on his clones, so if you're constantly destroying them, he's utterly useless, and he doesn't heal flyers very well. Now, it might seem like, oh man, that's a lot of weaknesses, but they're all very, very niche. Like, they are all very niche, and he works in most situations. Another great support is Luna Snow. Luna Snow has been a staple in the meta since the game's release. She has almost never been a bad pick. She got a buff recently where if you hit her freeze, she gets bonus health, which gives her even more survivability. They increase her damage. She got a slight buff in healing. They nerfed her ult charge, which was probably the best change. And then she got to team up with Hawkeye. Definitely one of the best supports in the game. She has great healing output, an insane ultimate that heals through most other enemy ultimates. The ultimate is anti-CC, so she can't be stunned out of it. She has her own CC for ability counter, like stopping Strange ult or Wanda ult. And for a support, she has really good damage. She is a little bit weaker to dive because she has a lack of mobility and utility, but overall, great support. You can almost never go wrong playing her. And Invisible Woman is right up there with her. She is a little more mechanically difficult to play, I would say, but extremely strong. Now, she hasn't been touched recently, other than by Reed, but the reason she's strong, being able to constantly pierce, heal, and do damage at the same time in a line. If everyone's lined up, she's pumping out healing and damage, which just farms her ultimate insanely fast. She has a good ultimate that makes her and anyone else inside of it invisible from the other team, so it's super hard to hit shots if you don't know who you're aiming at. She can block and heal at the same time. If someone's low and you throw that shield in front of them, they are no longer taking damage and being healed at the same time, which heals them even faster if you are throwing your primary at them as well. So you can take a squishy from 0 HP to full HP in like 2 seconds. She's also anti-flyer with her vortex. You can throw that up in the air, pop it in their vicinity, and it just knocks them straight down to the ground. So overall, she's just an extremely well-balanced and good support, but she's very difficult to play. She heavily relies on perfect positioning to put out consistent healing and damage and make plays with her push and her pull. She's not easy to master, and shield management is extremely important, but if you can manage that, you'll provide a lot of value. And lastly, I think we have every rank's favorite support, Cloak and Dagger. Now, I say that because Cloak and Dagger gets a lot of hate just from the fact that she can heal with no skill, like you don't have to aim. But there's more to her kit than just healing. She hasn't been buffed or nerfed as of late, but she's strong because she has great healing output with her Veil, her Bubble, and her Primary. And she also has a really good ultimate that's not your standard circle of healing, right? You can kind of get creative with it and cover more area. On top of that, she has great utility just by switching to Cloak. Cloak's kit is designed to help with survivability survivability on the team, ward people off, make them vulnerable, and just overall a good Cloak and Dagger, constantly switching, reload canceling, and using their kit just in the best way possible. It is extremely annoying because you miss most of your cooldowns, you'll miss ultimates, and all just because of Cloak. One thing though I want to mention is that it is extremely easy to overwhelm a Cloak and Dagger. There's so much that goes in their minds as they play because they have so much at their disposal with their kit that it's like it's super easy with high damage or high pressure to just be like have their brain scrambled and not knowing what to do. On top of the fact that in her ultimate specifically, Mag, Iron Man, Hawkeye, and Magic can all one-shot her out of her ult. Now the moment we've all been waiting for. The worst of the worst strategists, the ones that just don't hit the mark. And for the ones that deserve to be on this list, Jeff the Landshark is definitely one of them. Now, he is better than he used to be. I will say that. But they gutted him from his DPS playstyle, which I think was actually extremely broken. It was extremely strong. I'm glad they changed it. I'm glad they made him a heal bot. That might be a hot take. But regardless, as a heal bot, he is a little bit weaker in comparison. He has okay healing output. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's more consistent than it was before, where before it was just kind of like burst. And he has no healing ultimate. Now, don't get me wrong, his ult can be really good for counterplay, but it just doesn't offer the same sustain that teams need, especially in comp, with how much damage there is in the game. As a support compared to the rest, he probably has the best survivability for himself, and he has the most consistent damage, being able to heal and do damage at the same time from a lot longer range than Invisible Woman. But overall, he's in the middle. Like, he doesn't do anything super great, but he also does things like pretty poorly in comparison. Like, I would say, like, you know, as far as damage, he does less damage than Adam and Ultron, but he does like a little more healing than Ultron. Probably not Adam. Adam, I think, can do pretty good healing if you have good aim. Speaking of Ultron, let's talk about him. How I wanted him to be good so bad, which he's okay. Before release, he was really weak. His ultimate sucked. They buffed his ultimate on release, so now it does way more damage, which makes it way more viable. But as a support, he offers a different playstyle. He's only good in triple support, I think, because he has Mantis level healing. Most of his damage comes from the last second of his primary, so you have to have really good aim and tracking to be able to hit that last instance of damage to get the most out of it. In my opinion, he's really only good as an anti-dive option. Like he can be good if the Ultron player is really good, but he doesn't offer enough healing. His ultimate is okay. I'll give him that. But in general, I think his playstyle is really selfish. And in this meta specifically, right, we're in a flyer / poke meta, so they kind of like counteract each other, right? Hella Hawkeye can counter him pretty easily. Maybe like even a little bit of Psylocke, since she can get up close and personal and take high ground. But overall, I would say I think that he's probably the worst support in the game right now in terms of support. Plus, I'm tired of Ultrons farming MVP when they don't deserve it. It inflates their ego like crazy. Now, a support that I think deserves a little more love, but is still, you know, fairly weak and just a little too niche, is Adam Warlock. His most recent change was having his heals cooldown reduced by getting headshots. So now by getting headshots, he can just spam heals, but that requires really good aim. And if you don't have good aim, you're gonna be a really bad Adam. Plus, he has 0 mobility, so he is extremely weak to dive. He's only decent in triple support or res comps, and overall is an extremely easy target with ultimates or any high damage cooldowns. He also doesn't have a support ultimate, and when you use it, it's kind of like a big beacon of, hey, I'm over here, you know, come ult me, right? Bucky, Mag, just like if they can get to the spot, it's free kills. He has potential, but in comparison to what else is out there right now, his value is just a lot lower. And lastly, for the supports, someone who's kind of on the same level as Ultron and Adam, we have Mantis. Mantis, just like Ultron, has really weak heals, very gradual and over time. Unlike Adam, Adam's more of like a burst, which can be really strong, but Mantis and Ultron are kind of neck and neck in that sense. They don't offer a lot. I think Mantis would be a little better than Ultron because she can damage amp for her team. But again, she's really only good in triple support or res comp. She just doesn't offer enough to be viable outside of that. She does have her ultimate, which is a healing ult, but the thing is that it doesn't last very long, which I think is good. I think having like all the support ultimates last a really long time would be bad for the game, but I think it makes her a niche pick. It makes her only playable in certain play styles, and for that reason, in general, makes her kind of a worse support in that sense. And especially if the enemy team is running like some high damage poke comp or brawl, she's just not going to be able to do enough healing to help her team sustain. So yeah, that's the 4 best and worst heroes in every role. At the end of the day, like I said, every hero can work if they're in the right hands, but if you want to climb, it helps to know who's making the game easier for you you and who's making it harder. Do you agree or disagree? Leave a comment down below and let me know if you think there's someone else who should have made it in the video. And if you guys want tier lists, guides, and breakdowns just like this every week, don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep climbing, and I'll see you next time.